Back around 1903, Wallace D. Wattles shared a wonderful truth with the world. He said a person's right to life means his right to have the free and unrestricted use of all the things which may be necessary to as full as mental, spiritual, and physical unfolding. In other words, his right to be rich.
Hello, this is Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, the founder and the spiritual director of the Agape International Spiritual Center. And I'm so honored and grateful that my dear friend Bob Proctor has asked me to introduce this program, The Secret Science of Getting Rich. Before we begin the program, I'd like to give you a little history of this and how it came to be. A great secret has been passed throughout the centuries. It was coveted, lost, stolen, hidden, and bought for vast sums of money as it continued its journey from being passed from one to another. Those who received the knowledge of the secret were fortunate indeed, for without exception, those men and women have become renowned as the greatest people who have ever lived. One night in Chicago in 1896, the secret was passed to one such man, and with its knowledge, he discovered not only why he had spent his entire life in poverty and failure, but he discovered how to realize the life he had always been seeking, a life of total abundance. That night, his life changed forever. Though it would be many years before he would begin to write the Little Green Book, his now immortal masterpiece based on the principles of the Great Secret. The man was Wallace D. Wattles. What Wallace Wattles did not know at the time, and what he could have never have known, was that the effect of that night would reach far, far into the future. He was setting forth a great matrix of events, places, people, circumstances that would change the course of history. 73 years after Wattles first discovered the great secret, and more than 50 years after his death, the secret was again passed from one great man to another. On a night in 1969, Lloyd Conant of the Nightingale Conant Corporation had Bob Proctor as a guest in his home. At the time, Bob Proctor had been a serious student of human potential for close to a decade, and he had been studying Earl Nightingale's material since shortly after he began recording his philosophy. But nothing could have prepared Bob Proctor for the new dimension he was about to step into that night, due to Lloyd Conant and his Little Green Book. Lloyd began to speak very softly. It was obvious to Bob that as he spoke, it was traveling into the past in his mind. He explained how many years before he had been given a Little Green Book. Even as he said the words, Bob could feel Lloyd's energy change as he held the image of that Little Green Book in his mind. He told Bob that he stayed home all weekend, reading and rereading its contents. He said he knew that he had discovered the secret to life. And so on the following Monday morning, Lloyd Conant decided he would build a world-class corporation. Today, the Nightingale Conant Corporation, now nearly 50 years old, is the largest producer and publisher of personal development products. It stands as a monument to Lloyd Conant's dream, to his vision, to his understanding of the secret to life, and to the Little Green Book. Throughout Lloyd's conversation, Bob was bursting with curiosity to know the title of the Little Green Book, and even more so, what was written in this magical text. And that night, Lloyd Conant gave Bob Proctor his very own copy of the Little Green Book. From a great to a future great, the secret was handed over once again. The contents of the Little Green Book have served as the foundation for every personal development program Bob Proctor has ever written. Bob went on to write a number of very powerful seminars, and he has taught these seminars worldwide, from Europe to Asia to America. The seminars have assisted companies to increase their business by hundreds of millions of dollars each year. The ideas and exercises in these recorded and live seminars have directed many thousands of individuals to lead richer, brighter lives. Understanding the Little Green Book and The Secret to Life has enabled Bob to mentor educators, psychiatrists, medical doctors, senior executives from multinational corporations, and students and salespeople. He has also reached millions with his #1 bestseller, You Were Born Rich. Without exception, every one of these individuals can see and enjoy a brighter future because of their new awareness. Realizing the impact The Secret can have on a person's life caused Bob to be totally committed to teaching these concepts for the rest of his stay on the planet. 35 years after Bob Proctor was given the Little Green Book that changed his life, and more than 100 years after Wattles first discovered The Secret on the other side of the world in Australia, The Secret again passed into new hands. On a night in September 2004, Rhonda Byrne was handed a tattered, faded copy of an old book. The book was given to Rhonda by her daughter, and in many ways, this book was Rhonda's last chance to save her own life. In the previous months, her life had completely fallen apart. Her father had died suddenly. Her business was crumbling. She was slowly going broke, and her relationships were in turmoil. But despite all of this, a flame continued to burn in Rhonda. The light of creativity still glowed within, and as tears of desperation flowed down her cheeks, it was through this flame, this light within, that Rhonda reached out and took the book from her daughter's hands. It was a small book, only about 60 pages long. It was written in 1910, and it was by a man Rhonda had never heard of. She was holding the Little Green Book. You will be listening to the same material throughout this program. You are listening to the immortal masterpiece of Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. Like many before her, when Rhonda Byrne read the 60 pages of The Science of Getting Rich, her world and life changed forever. Like Lloyd Conant had done, she read and reread its contents with amazement and excitement until every word had been internalized into her very being. And like magic, her whole life began to turn around. With the knowledge of the truth of life within her, Rhonda immediately embarked on a new journey and a new mission. For with Wattles' words, Rhonda had come to know absolutely what she had been born to do. She was going to take the secret to the world. 9 months later, in early July 2005, Rhonda Byrne was sitting on an airplane bound for the United States of America. In a few days, her entire production crew would also arrive from Australia, ready to interview the teachers for a film known simply as The Secret. As Rhonda sat on the airplane, she gave no thought to the fact that she had not organized one single teacher to film. She simply trusted that by using the knowledge of The Secret, the perfect teachers would appear to help her realize her vision of bringing joy to millions. On her flight from Australia to the United States, Rhonda Byrne carried one book on board the airplane with her. She read that book from cover to cover. The book was called You Were Born Rich, and it was written by a man called Bob Proctor. In that same month of July 2005, Bob Proctor went on a 2-day trip to Aspen, a city he had not visited for some years. Not long after he arrived, Bob was contacted by an Australian production company called Prime Time Productions. They simply asked if he would do an interview for a film they were in the process of shooting. The film was called The Secret. Despite knowing little else about it, Bob immediately felt that this was something he was supposed to do. The only problem was his schedule was already filled up for some time. And even though one of his commitments had just canceled, he was in Aspen. But in an almost unbelievable twist of fate, and the final step in a matrix of events that spanned more than a century, Rhonda and the Secret team were already in Aspen. And so the very next day, Rhonda Byrne and Bob Proctor met for the first time, and the rest is history. The release of The Secret